Next, we have Lia. Yeah, Lia is an architect and urbanist from Brasilia. But she's just returned from Japan. She just finished her master's thesis. She's just finished her master's thesis where she profiled 75 different groups and case studies of individuals and collectives that have exemplified or done ground-up urbanism or participatory urbanism. In fact, how she found out about Better Cities was through her research in Tokyo. And then she realized that we were sort of doing something similar. We didn't enter her thesis, but here she is. She's in KL for a year. And this project of hers, or thesis of hers, is called Mend-Yourself-Urbanism, or My Urbanism. And she's passionate about urban life. She believes that cities can become better places when the practice of urbanism essentially is reunited with the everyday life of citizens. So very much into placemaking as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Galeri Petronas and Better Cities for inviting me. So what's the role of architecture in placemaking? Well, Z started talking about what's placemaking. There's not a definition a specific definition for placemaking. So in 2006, Project for Public Spaces, which is the organization that coined the term, has organized a survey to find out what's placemaking. So they gathered over 500 definitions. So I'll share some with you. Making public spaces living spaces, creating public spaces that serve the public, or the process of incorporating humanity into space, which is all related to the social space, a space that people can gather, can communicate and share ideas, and it's a space that is all embracing, it's for everyone. So there's many ways to tackle a social space and to approach a social space from the architecture point of view. And I will advocate in favor of one specific, which is called the My Urbanism. So My Urbanism stands for Mend-Yourself-Urbanism, and that is perceived as unpleasant. So it necessarily, it implies the idea of a very local, a small-scaled action, and it implies the idea of identifying something that is broken or as damaged. So, and to mend yourself is basically to do it yourself and not rely on others. So, when this concept is applied to urbanism, what does that mean? It means that citizens are taking ownership of the spaces and repairing and recognizing an urban issue and tackling those issues. In this research, I collected so far 75 case studies all over the world. Of course, not all of those projects are architecture or are even initiated by architects. But I selected 5 that were initiated by architects, so we can see what does that mean. Because basically, most of these projects are trying to create a place, to create placemaking. So I'll start with this project. It's a Spanish group called Boa Mistura. And this project was done in Brazil in last year, 2012, in a favela. And it's called Luz nas Vielas, which means light in the alleyways. So the group moved to the favela for a couple of weeks. They engaged with the community in order to improve the public space. So they engaged with all the owners of those houses, and also with kids, in order to produce a series of interventions in the favela. So they instructed the kids and the community to produce that series of interventions. I'll share another project that is called Instant Hutong. It's in Beijing. 2 architects, Italian architects, This one is related to another issue. It's related to the rapid urbanization process in a city like Beijing, and what does that mean to the traditional neighborhoods and traditional lifestyles that are that are increasingly disappearing from Beijing. So they engage with people in a series of interventions, events, research to reconstruct those hutongs and to showcase those hutongs for everyone. So they have a series of artworks and interventions in the street using the input of the locals. Now we'll fly to Japan, and I will present you the Tokyo Picnic Club. Tokyo Picnic Club is an initiative by architects too. Tokyo is a completely different reality. No public space, just 5.4 square meters per inhabitant, like of open green space. And compared to other big cities, it's very little. And when that public space exists, it's actually very regulated. So you cannot do that, you cannot do this or that, it closes at 5. So what Tokyo Picnic Club is trying to do is basically to first assess all the spaces. So what can you do in spaces and what is forbidden or not, and to really come up with and to show people that you can actually use spaces and use that's good to use public spaces and engage in a more freely use of public space. So really trying to push the boundaries of public space in Tokyo while evaluating that space too. So I'll share 2 other projects that are slightly more architectural. This one is another Spanish group called Basurama. Basurama stands for waste. Basura in Spanish is waste. So what they do is use waste, urban waste, to produce and improve public spaces. So this project in particular is called Urban Solid Waste, RUS. And they traveled with this project to several cities, and they're still traveling. This one is in Lima. So the interesting thing about this project in particular is that the first time that they tried to execute that project, it was in Brazil. And you see it in the picture here on the left. It failed. They didn't engage the community. And after everything was ready, over the night, the whole park was set on fire. So, but they took that experience, and they learned that they should involve the community. If you were to do something like this in a small community, you have to involve the community from all the levels: institutional, community, collectives, so you can have a better response. So from this first project on, they started working with the community, just like the first Spanish project, teaching local communities to see the potential of waste and to see potential of public spaces, and how can you really improve public spaces with very little money. So just share another project, similar but different, 72-hour urban action. First edition was in 2010 in Israel. And they are now traveling with this program all over the world. Last year was in Stuttgart, the pictures that we see here, and this year will be in London. So the 72-hour urban action is architecture competition to design and build projects in public space. They engage with the community in a different way. The 72-hour urban action team develops a relationship and assess with the community what kind of needs they have, and from there they take that information and translates into a challenge brief for the participants. So the participants come in, they work together in 3 days and 3 nights to design and build these public spaces. So the community serves as who informs what is needed, and also as judges of the whole challenge. So they have usually 10 sites and 10 challenges. The best ones are voted by the community, and they remain. They keep the local government keeps those places for the community. So, of course, architecture influences placemaking. And in the case of my urbanism, in the case of this kind of intervention, I think it influences by engaging people in a very direct way, because it's more experimental, and for that it's quicker, it's inexpensive, so you can really tackle things. A community can really see very fast what's being designed and built. So in a way, it builds trust. But I would like to propose another challenge, another way of thinking, because I think it's a two-way relationship. I think that also placemaking influences architecture. And when we see this kind of projects, when architects are faced with the problem of placemaking, the answer is not restricted to a built object. So it really opens up the field of architecture to other answers, as interventions, arts, itineraries, mappings, and this kind of things. And also, because it's in a direct collaboration with community, it's really diminishes, in a way, the authorship of the figure of the architect. It becomes a little bit of a collective authorship. And I think that's all about, when these programs work, usually is when the community feel that they are involved in a way in the process of thinking. So that's it. Thank you.